Preparation for the Risk Management Professional exam. Tools and techniques. In this video, we'll give you our tools and techniques to help you successfully prepare for the Risk Management Professional exam. The video is divided into the following topics: tools and techniques to help you prepare, and then we'll look at how to spend your time. So let's first look at the tools and techniques that we will propose to help you prepare for your exam. So we have three areas. One, we will go through the essential areas which you should focus on when you are studying and preparing. Then we will have a look at the mathematics. What are the key formulas and calculations that you need to know that you should expect you will have questions in. And then lastly we will look at understanding what is called ITTOS, input, tools, techniques and outputs of the PMI processes and the interactions with each other of the processes. So these are the three areas that we will go through in our tools and techniques lesson. And then we will also give you how to understand and analyze the questions, and that will be our next lesson. So let's look at the first area, the essential areas. The essential areas that you need to know before going into the exam are all focused around those 5 knowledge domains that we showed earlier when we explained the content of the exam. So here we have them again. So we have risk strategy and planning, stakeholder engagement, risk process facilitation, risk monitoring and reporting, and perform specialized risk analysis. So if looking at these 5 areas and the percentage of items expected in the test, it looks like that we should be focusing our effort on the risk process facilitation. That is true, but it's also not true. If you do that, you risk that if you get it wrong, you will fail. You put all your eggs in one basket. So this is not the approach that we are going to advise you to focus on when you are preparing. Instead, we suggest that you get a solid understanding of the key activities for each area and the interaction and tools across the areas. With that, you have a much higher success rate, because yes, the risk process facilitation might be the largest part of the exam, but it is only a certain percentage. So do not put all your eggs in one basket, but you need to look at all 5 areas. And if you already now, after passing other exams or reading the study material, know that there is a weak area, then focus on that, but don't neglect the others. You need to study all the 5 areas, as you cannot predict what will be asked in the exam. So the tools that you need to know across those 5 areas is multiple tools. First of all, you will see a lot of questions or multiple questions that is about simulation. So you need to know what the Monte Carlo simulation is all about. You need to know about the different distributions, and we've listed some of the most commonly here. So you need to be able to distinguish what is what, how does each distribution look like, and where is it applied. Sensitivity analysis is in a number of questions. And here you need to know that the tornado diagram is how you visualize the result of an sensitivity analysis. So you need to know what is the analysis all about, and you need to know that the tornado diagram is the output of such analysis. Contract types. A lot of risk is associated with your contracts with subcontractors or even with your customer. So you need to know what are the different types of contracts and what are the risks associated with each type. Is it the buyer or the vendor? Is the customer or the vendor who has the majority of the risk? Baseline plans. You will be asked questions that is linking back to your schedule or to your project plan. And here you need to know what the baseline plans are and when to update them. Communication used to be a separate area in the exam. Now it is integrated into the new areas and still a very important part. So you need to know channels, communication channels, that's a calculation, communication technology and communication methods. Parental analysis, also called the 80-20 rule. That is something you will also see in the exam. So you need to know what is a parental analysis, and you need to know that that's the same as the 80-20 rule. Motivation theories. There is a lot about stakeholder management, stakeholder communication, and including in that is also motivation theories of how to motivate your team mainly. And then lastly, in our essential areas that we believe you should look at is you need to know about the differences of a functional versus a matrix organization. And when we talk about organizations, you also need to know what are the communication channels and technologies, methods that should be applied when communicating in the various organizations. These areas are absolutely critical. You need to know the topics for these areas, as they will be in the majority of the questions that you should expect. Another thing that you need to pay attention to is the mathematics. So there's a couple of formulas or calculations that you need to know. One is the risk is probability multiplied with impact. That is the risk exposure, the risk factor. So you need to know that. You need to know how to calculate communication channels. And here you need to know how to remember that this is n plus 1 and not minus 1 and so on. So we will in the worksheet give you some examples on this, but this is a calculation that you need to know. How to calculate mean and average, you need to know that. It's basic math, but it's something that if you haven't been exposed to math recently, you might have forgotten, and we want to make sure, you need to make sure that you know this and you don't get confused about the different terminologies, what is mean, what is average. Standard deviation. Now, this one is used in the risk management curriculum. Now, this one will be difficult to calculate without the advanced calculator. But there is a method, and that method we'll show you in our preparation worksheet. So please download that sheet and go through that explanation. They're very elaborate on how you can calculate this with the basic calculator that is at your disposal during the exam. 3-point estimation is also a critical area. You need to know how to calculate this. Again, the formula is on the downloadable worksheet. Expected monetary value, or called EMV. This is something that you should expect questions in, and you need to know how to derive this from a given scenario. Earned value, which is progressing, is your project progressing according to plan and budget. You should not expect exam questions in this area, but there's no harm in refreshing it. If you are not strong on math, then this one should be the one that you should not prioritize. So this is the key mathematics that you need to absolutely be on top of. Now the third area is the ITTOS, which stands for input, tools, techniques, outputs. And there is no shortcut here. There is only one way, and this is to remember it. You need to memorize this. And what it is in the PMI terminology is that you have a number of PMI areas which is linked to different process groups. So here is one of the pictures that you will see in the PMI PM book, and you need to know how each of these areas is linked to each other and how the process group is linked to each other. This is very key. Another view is also from the PMI, where you can here see what is the input output of each of the process groups. Again, this is what is considered as ITTOs. So you need to know, first of all, what are the process groups, how is it linked to the different areas, and then what is the input output of each process group. So knowledge area, process group, when is it used, what is the activities within, again, another PMI chart, and finally you need to know in which stage of the process of your project. Is it initiating process group, planning, executing? At what stage of your project, if you have time here, is these process groups in effect and important? So these PMI parts of the PM book you need to memorize. Now, I would say you need to memorize the conceptual part. You cannot memorize all the different input-output. But that is, if you want a perfect 100% score, you need to be able to answer every single question. If you want to pass, I would say if you have a solid understanding of how these things link together and how the risk activities fits into these different matrices, you should be good to go. So how to do this? Well, again, it is to remember. Now, what I suggest you to do is that you create a worksheet on your own on a piece of paper. And every time you start to study, you draw that worksheet. And the first thing you do before you open your book is you check with the master worksheet that you have created, what you have just drawn, does that fit? Has you memorized it correctly? If not, you throw away the one you just draw, you do your study. Next time you start study, you draw it again. You force yourself to draw this piece of paper. And when you get into the exam, you are going to draw that piece of paper. So that brings us to the topic how to spend your time. So as you remember from the previous lessons, you have 3.5 hours of examination time. Now, before that, you have the tutorial. Since you are most likely familiar with IIT, you should not need 15 minutes to go through that tutorial. It's a very simple application with a button for the calculator and a few navigation buttons. So spend a couple of minutes, 5 minutes if you need, go through, make sure you understand how it works. Do not start your exam, but instead prepare yourself, relax, breathe, whatever you need to do to get mentally prepared and relaxed, and then create your reference worksheets. So what you do here is you take your pen that is provided together with note paper, and you now write down the 1 or 2 worksheets that you have memorized, and you write down this. Now we have one example in the that you can download that has all the math on it, as well as a few other key messages. So use that, create your own 1 or 2 page worksheets during your preparation, and now during the 15 minutes, write that down. The reason I'm saying this and the reason why we're proposing this is that once you start here going through the questions, you don't want to stress and suddenly have to, what was it the formula for this question? If you have your worksheet lying next to you. Those questions becomes the easiest questions in the entire exam, because you simply turn your head, look at the worksheet, pick up the formula, and now you with confidence can answer that question. So everything that you need to memorize of essential areas, the math, the tools, write that down, then that is out of your brain, and focus on the other parts, focusing on analyzing the questions and digging deeper into trying to find the answers. But for those that's on the worksheets, that's a given answer. So this is taking away a lot of stress. As you go along, you will see these questions and you will see, oh, it's on my worksheet, I can answer it with confidence, and it will build your confidence. Click, you are now ahead of the time. One question done in seconds, and you can now spend more time on those where you might need to really analyze the question itself and try to find out the answer because you don't have it. So that's what we recommend you to do, how to spend your time. So with that, let's do a summary. So after completing this video, you should now understand the tools and techniques to help you to prepare for the risk management exam. So go through the video, you can pause it, take your note, look at the worksheet, and you should be good to go to start your preparation. Thank you.